Hey, my name's Dan Glass. I'm an activist with the Gay Liberation Front, and I'm a tour guide with Queer Tours of London and Mince Through Time. And I'm really excited to be working with the Museum of Youth Culture, particularly helping collect archives for the LGBT collection. And it's brilliant to start with the Gay Liberation Front on the 50th anniversary of the first LGBT demonstration in Britain.
A complete revolutionary change in society, non-monogamy, coming out, the whole idea of lesbian, gays actually being open about their sexuality was something which was just not known.
And it said, we demand as much right to hold hands in public as heterosexuals have. And after some other very serious ones about employment, protection, employment and so on, this is the one that goes to the heart everywhere.
It was a whole broad movement of women's liberation, black power and gay liberation.
Our liberation depends on the liberation of everybody, lesbian and gay.
And so I got involved in the Gay Liberation Front in 1971. So I wasn't there at the beginning, but I was there for some of the most exciting times.
With rare exceptions, you were a bit apprehensive before you went through that door. There were regular meetings once a week. You went through the door and you'd screwed yourself up a bit, not because you were frightened of what you'd find there, not because you were physically afraid of anything, but somewhere deep inside you, you knew if you went through that door, your life would never be the same again.
Yes, it was life-changing, as it was for everybody who got involved. The first demonstration was in November 27th, 1970.
I think what a journey I've been on and what a journey the movement's been on. I mean from LSE in Highbury Fields when I was 18 to a global event in Cuba. You never really needed to smoke marijuana or something because you just walked into All Saints Hall and the atmosphere and you'd be flying.
We were angry in 1970, 1971, boiling with anger. Generation after generation before us had experienced what is like a pogrom. That, as the word means, violence and violent actions. And that's what all our predecessors had experienced in Britain and Ireland put together.
Again, a sort of like electric buzz there, and people were so assertive. They really knew what they wanted and they knew that they were right. And there were people there who were like 13 and 14, boys and girls. So they wouldn't actually have been that much helped if the age of consent had been reduced to 16. They really didn't think in those terms. They talked in terms of self-determination and running their own sex lives and changing society, a revolutionary change in society, the whole way that society is organised. Gay is good, gay is angry.
We began to develop our own way of demonstrating, if you like. At Highbury Field, someone brought along balloons, which kind of immediately changed the whole atmosphere, and it began to be sort of fun. And then I started, calling out all the pretty policemen, saying, come out, wherever you are, where's the pretty policeman? And we were chanting all these things, and we had candles and stuff like that. So we began to develop our own style.
From the mid-70s, the country started drifting to the right, and instead of gay liberation and revolutionary politics being on the agenda, we started having a defensive agenda, and then rights came to the fore. And the defining moment of that was the prosecution of gay news. That's when the agenda moved to a rights agenda. It was a defensive agenda.
Gay Liberation Front were involved in squats. There was the women's squat in Faraday Road in Notting Hill Gate. There was Colville Houses, which was mainly men, in Notting Hill Gate. There was one in Bounds Green, there was one in Muswell Hill, there was one in Parkfield Road, in Hampstead. I mean, there were quite a lot. There was one in King's Cross, which was used as what was called a crash pad by quite a lot of people. A crash pad, for people who don't know what that is, people would come into the Gay Liberation Front office at 5 Caledonian Road. Perhaps they'd been thrown out by their parents or for some reason were homeless, and so they'd be found emergency accommodation for the night. And so people from the squat would give them a bed for the night. And so that was one of the very important services that Gay Liberation Front did.
Well, we used to organise crash pads, I remember that. And I had a boyfriend who was on the collective as well, and we were open so late we used to crash ourselves on a mattress in the basement of 5 Caledonian Road.
We had no social media, and most people didn't carry a camera of any description around. And a lot of these photographs none of us have ever seen for 30 or 40 or even 50 years, including the pictures here, now, at the Museum of Youth Culture.
The police are so skilled, but when they're faced with a bunch of queens in drag and we start our antics, it often happened that, half the rank of police there started laughing, which meant we had actually divided the police into two.
I don't like to say it, but people started pleading not guilty, and the trials, I don't like saying it, were often fun because the barristers used to humiliate the police.
Yeah.
Like, what was he doing? And the police would go like that. And then at one stage, the judge says, we need to make a note, whoever it is, the underwriter needs to make a note. And that ended up with police going like that.
Said, have you dropped any acid? And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, are you up for it? I know you have a job and what might be thought a serious job. Are you up for it? I said, of course I'm up for it. And he said, well, get the Monday off and we'll do it on a Saturday. So off we went to Barnes and I tripped. And one of the funniest things I ever saw happened there, which was our host. We were all peeking, as you call it, if you know about it. Our host went into the bathroom wearing just a kind of silk dressing gown and decided he was Marie Antoinette. And he piled shaving foam on his head to make one of those high 18th century white wigs. And then the doorbell rang. Well, this was a first floor flat. And I'll never know how he held it together to set off from the bathroom, remember why, get down the stairs and open the door. And outside was a 17-year-old deserter from the French army. But to lose the knowledge of the partying, the wonderful fun of it, is to lose what was really going on in 1971 and 1972.
I remember particularly that a woman came out of one of the sex clubs where she was working as a hostess. I remember her name because she became a friend later, and she just joined the demonstration.
I mean, a memorable occasion was when I went with Peter Tatchell to the World Youth Festival in East Berlin. There was only 2 LGBT delegations. That was the one we organised, British delegation, and there was the Free German Youth delegation. That was the Young Communists in East Germany. So there's only 2 of us organised.
My closest friend and a former affair was a woman, an older woman, and Edward Heath was trying to get married to her. Edward Heath, the Prime Minister, was trying to get married to her. Tory Central Office had told Edward Heath, for our electoral purposes, you must have a wife. For those who don't know his name, he was a Tory Prime Minister who was either asexual, which my friend thought he was, or gay. And I never spoke to anyone of it because it was her story.
As far as what we used to call gay rights are concerned, there's been a lot of progress. Lesbian and gay people now serve openly in the military and get married and be respectable business people and be MPs. And that's not at all what the Gay Liberation Front wanted. We didn't want to just be part of respectable establishment. We wanted a completely different sort of society. So, as far as that's concerned, we haven't got anywhere. Things are pretty oppressive at the moment.
Well, it's affected every country in the world. It's challenged the homophobes everywhere. Every authoritarian regime has been outed. So that, I think, is a great achievement that we've managed to take things so far in the last 50 years.
We have achieved the rights, but I don't think we've changed the mindset.
It's not to say that there isn't still a lot to do. There is, and there's still a necessity to go on organising. And I'm really happy to say that this year we brought out a 50th anniversary copy of the GLF Manifesto, and if you can get hold of a copy of that, you'll see how much we still need to do and how much people's attitudes need to change.
And to this day, if I see in Stockwell, where I live, or in the West End of London, or in the East End of London, if I see two women holding hands, these days I can normally know whether they're non-binary or whether they're lesbian. And if they're a couple of guys, then they're doing what Demand 8 was in 1970.
Wow. Yeah.
And you can't do it in Poland now.
No.
And you can't do it in Turkey now.
No.
And you can't do it in Brazil now.
No.
And you can't do it in Kenya now. And you can't do it in Uganda now.
GLF has never left my consciousness, but I have to work within the society I'm in.
We want sexual self-determination. We believe that young people must have the unhindered right to be homosexual, heterosexual or bisexual, and the complete knowledge to understand their own sexuality. We want to end male chauvinism and sexism.